Konnichiwa, Isuna.
Misina.
That means hello, listeners, in Japanese, because we are talking about anime this episode. This is the What is Nerd podcast, in case you didn't know. I'm your host, Tyler Dietz. I'm here with my good friend, Nick Grant. Konnichiwa, Nick Grant.
Hey man, I don't speak any other language. I'm not smart enough to figure it out, so I'm just gonna say, hey,
American.
Yeah, I'm gonna speak English. It's the only language I know. So hello, happy to be here, and I'm sorry I don't know any other languages.
I'm also here with my fellow otaku, JP Cochran. How's it going, JP? That's racist.
No, I'm sorry.
That's gibberish for I'm doing well, right?
I'm doing well.
Awesome.
I'll never try to do that again. Sorry.
So, between us three, we represent the spectrum of nerdiness, from myself up at the top, JP down at the bottom, and Nick somewhere in between. The point of the show is to serve as an introduction and overview of all things that are widely considered to be nerdy entertainment. This includes, but is not limited to, comic books, anime, video games, board games, and different types of science fiction and fantasy. If you like what you hear, like us on our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter at whatisnerd1 with no question mark. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, etc. Leave us a rating or review if you're able. That helps us out a lot. Also, check out our sister show, What is Sports? And finally, if you have any questions or comments, send us an email at winerdcast@gmail.com. Now today, we're covering our very first anime, okay? So JP, you've never watched an anime before, right?
Nope, not just in passing. Never staying, just in passing.
How do you watch it
Okay.
in passing? Are you just like flipping through the channels, or are you like at a
No,
friend's
I
house
was-
and like, oh, I'm not watching this, and you go to a different room? How does that work?
Just in passing, I was just thinking at the time where Dietz, I think it was Dietz, and some other people were watching a anime movie or something in my apartment, and I feel like I was leaving, and I just...
Yeah, and I mean, you've seen Pokemon commercials, probably.
Yeah, Pokemon commercials, yeah, and I've been flipping through, and I see, I see...
You know what anime looks like, at least, right?
Yes.
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 Okay, and so Nick, you were a Dragon Ball Z fan, right? Back in the day.
Oh yeah, I was a pretty big DBZ fan, so I've seen my fair share of anime through that, but I haven't really watched any other shows. I watched some Gundam Wing and some Ronin Warriors, pretty much stuff that was on Toonami. But yeah, a lot of DBZ.
See, I never really watched anime. I watched a little bit of Dragon Ball Z back in the day, but Nick, even whenever we were talking about it, I mean, I didn't watch that much Dragon Ball Z. I only remember a couple story arcs from it, but I only got into anime after I met my current wife, Chantel, because she was an anime kid growing up, and so she kind of introduced me to a few of her, old favorite shows and stuff. So I kind of got introduced to it pretty late in life, I guess, like in college. But this anime that we're covering now is actually one of the first animes that I watched since discovering it in college. And this is Neon Genesis Evangelion. So we're covering this episode because it's on Netflix now, and apparently that's a big deal, because this show was originally on back in the 90s, and it was it's kind of like a classic series. That's why I wanted to cover it. And now that it's on Netflix, this is the first time that it's been widely available for people to watch. That's legal, okay? It was on Toonami, or it was on Adult Swim, back in the day, whenever we were in middle school or high school or something like that. And that's when most people in America saw it for the first time. But since then, it hasn't really been available much. So that's why it's a big deal that's out now. So I'm curious about y'all's thoughts on it.
I'd like to hear JP's thoughts because
Okay.
here's a guy who's only seen anime in passing, so I would like to hear what he thought through the first 9 episodes.
Okay, you know what? I enjoyed it. I did. I thought I thought it was cool. It was very, very dramatic.
Yeah, okay.
And the drama comes at you fast.
Uh-huh.
I love how there's a close-up of the face, and the eyes go into like a very serious expression, and there's like a dum dum dum,
Like the Law and Order sound.
very 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 dramatic, which I think is good because it keeps your attention.
Yeah. Okay.
It's sexual.
Yes.
It's very sexual.
We can talk about that.
Just a lot of times the way the camera is, the angle, the way the women are dressed.
Mm-hmm.
It's just.
It's weird. It's weird.
It's not in your face, but
It's kind of in your face.
It's in your face.
Yeah, okay, it's in your face. Yeah. And all the little, anime women are pretty. I mean, if you're an anime character, you would be attracted to them. If you're another cartoon male character, you would,
It's okay to say that the anime characters are sexy, JP. It's okay. Well, okay, so my thing about this, though, all right, so, and Nick, I don't want to jump over your general opinions, but I wanted to get this out of the way since we're on the topic. What really bothers me, though, about this show is that it very much objectifies the female characters, in a sexual way, but what really sticks out to me as an old person right now is that the two female main characters, Rei and Asuka, they are 14 years old, you know? And so I think it's pretty kind of gross, right?
Yeah,
that
it
it's
is.
sexualizing them.
That's what I was thinking too. And then the first time Shinji basically talks to Rei, she's coming out of the shower, she's naked, and she grabs him and he gets him on top, and it's probably, if you are one of the strangest, most awkward anime scenes out there. I mean, that's the only anime show I've seen, but yeah, if you think about it, they're two 14-year-old kids, and she's naked, and it's like, what is she doing? That part confused me.
Yeah.
Why was she doing that? Because she doesn't care. It's like it's almost like she just doesn't really care.
Well,
she has no emotion.
That's good. We'll get into that, exploring her as a character. But so Nick, what were your general thoughts then?
I thought it was pretty good. JP talked about it. He talked about the drama, and it is pretty. It's kind of an action show, sort of, but it really plays more as a drama because the action is so short-lived. It's more about the build-up and the story building to these action moments that really last a few minutes, where the majority of the show was planning for these attacks and things like that. But it's good. We can talk a little bit more. I have some other thoughts as we talk about the first 9 episodes later, as we kind of tell through the story. But it's good. It definitely keeps my attention. It was actually pretty funny. I was over the weekend. We were visiting my parents, and I was watching the show on Netflix, and my mom said, "Why are you watching cartoons?" And I was like, "Oh, it's for the podcast." But
Homework.
yeah, I was like, she's like, "You're watching cartoons again?" I was like, I mean, I guess, yeah. Yeah. The more things change, the more they stay the same, I guess.
That's funny. That reminds me of, so whenever I stopped watching cartoons, I think I told y'all this story before. I must have been in 6th grade, I think, and I was over at my friend's house, and I was watching Dexter's Lab or something like that, and his little brother comes in. His little brother was maybe 3 or 4 years younger than me, and he goes, "What you doing?" I said, "I'm just watching cartoons," and he goes, "How old are you?"
I think you told me that before.
And so from that point forward, I stopped watching cartoons for the rest of my life until basically I became an adult.
I don't know what happened with me. I went from watching Rocket Power and the Wild Thornberrys back in 5th grade to watching Viva La Bam.
Yeah.
And that was, I don't know. I went from straight from cartoons to MTV and Jackass.
And that's what happens in middle school, But this show, though, is, because I've seen the whole thing. This is actually my second time watching it. The first time was back in college, and it's a really good show. I think there are some things that bother me about it. I hate to say this because some people who like anime are really gonna might be turned off by me saying this, but anime is sometimes very obnoxious to me. It's because y'all said it's very dramatic and super exaggerated, and to me that just kind of gets exhausting sometimes.
Yeah, like Shinji, everything he says is like that boy needs to, relax a little bit. I'm just kidding. I know he has his own inner turmoil, but he's disturbed. He's a disturbed kid.
And kind of Deets, going off of what you said about over the top, a lot of it too just comes off as childish and immature sometimes. Mm-hmm. And to me, I feel like I'm watching some, like some Disney Channel or Nickelodeon show that's aimed towards kids, and like, who ordered the pizza? And like it's like cue the laugh track. I feel like
the humor is very over the top. And what's funny is that if y'all ever watch like Japanese live action movies, even their humor in general is just super exaggerated and over the top. Let's go into the plot, okay? So the concept. I'm going to give an overview of the premise of the show, and y'all kind of give me feedback and thoughts on this. Then we'll kind of dive into the storyline of the episode. So this takes place in a Japanese city in the future called Tokyo 3. It's kind of like sort of apocalyptic, like, there's some kind of crazy stuff that's been happening in the world. For example, giant monsters called angels are invading the city one at a time. And so no one knows where they're coming from. They're just kind of showing up, right? And all this started 15 years ago from the start of the series, whenever there's like a single angel invasion called the Second Impact, where an angel was found in Antarctica, and a big old explosion happens that melts Antarctica and causes the water level on Earth to rise and billions of people on Earth to die. And so this event was covered up by the United Nations. They claimed that the Antarctic melting and stuff was due to a meteorite, like an asteroid landing in Antarctica. And so they created a secret weapons development agency called NERV that began building these giant robots called Evangelions to prepare for future angel invasions. And for some reason, they need to be piloted by specific 14-year-old kids.
Yeah, did they ever explain why? Because that's one thing I thought was weird, is like, you're fighting these basically robot aliens who are threatening to destroy your planet, and it's like, hey, let's get these kids who are in middle school or high school to pilot these giant weapons and save us.
And they're called like the first child, or
the first children. Why it has to be 14-year-old kids?
Yeah. No, so they haven't explained that. But let me kind of nudge you on the right direction. Shinji's dad. So the main character is this 14-year-old boy named Shinji. Shinji's dad is the guy in charge of NERV, right? So for some reason, either maybe Shinji's dad built the Evangelion specifically so that Shinji could pilot it or something like that. Honestly, I don't remember the answer to that question, but it's, for some reason, these kids are connected with these machines because they're not just giant robots, right?
Yeah, the machines basically have a life of their own, right?
Yeah.
And that's one thing I don't understand, too, is so you have these 14-year-old kids piloting these giant robots, and then basically it's like, the robot's like, well, these kids can't pilot for crap, and so the robots take over and save the day.
Yeah, and that happens like when in the first, I guess, time you see Shinji fighting an angel, is that basically isn't he like knocked out or something, and the Ava
takes over.
Yeah, takes over. They call them Avas, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, what's the point? Why do we have the kids to pilot this?
Well, because whenever the Ava goes, they call it going berserk, right? It like literally just kind of goes crazy and starts like, roaring and screaming and like, so it almost kind of seems like the Avas are dangerous unless they're controlled by somebody.
It's like the Ava will become an angel if a human isn't operating it.
Almost seems that way, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so Tokyo 3 is a city, which is pretty neat because whenever an angel attacks, the skyscrapers go into the ground. And there's this big hollowed out cave underneath the city called a geofront, which I think that idea is pretty cool, right? Like if you got giant monsters attacking your city, It'd be nice if the buildings weren't all destroyed every time, right? And then there's three main characters, or three pilots for the Evas, right? So you got the Eva number 0, which is piloted by Rei Ayanami. She's the girl with the blue short hair. She's quiet and mysterious, and pretty much just seems to want to do whatever Shinji's dad wants her to do, right? She kind of just, in the first episode, she's like injured, and then he's like, all right, because Shinji was reluctant to fight the angel at first, so then the dad was just going to send her in again, even though she was already injured.
Yeah, and she like slaps Shinji for making a rude comment about his dad.
Right.
But it seemed like their relationship seemed strange, like they were lovers or something.
Almost. Yeah, something's weird though, right?
There's like some weird tones too, because also in the first episode, Miss Masato, who takes in Shinji under her wing, she makes a few jokes about, I'm not going to sleep with a 14-year-old. It's like, why would you even say that?
Yeah, if someone says that, then it's like, well, I mean, you've obviously, that's crossed your mind, obviously, right? Like, yeah, because we get Shinji. He's the pilot of Eva number 1. He's shy and insecure, obviously. And like any 14-year-old kid, though, he's like super horny, you know? So I got this theory, okay? Because we've talked about how the show kind of objectifies the female characters a lot. And if you look at it like the show is from his perspective, right?
I mean, he's surrounded by hot women all the time.
Yeah, and so like if you look at it like the show is from his point of view, it kind of excuses that a little bit, you know? Because like most 14-year-olds are checking out the women around him. But you know, I think that argument only goes so far as defending the the way the women are shown in this show. And the third pilot is Asuka Langley Soryu. She's the pilot of Eva number 2. She doesn't come in till like the 8th episode or so.
And I feel like they just put her in there as some weird comical sidekick. It's like, this show needs some more weird comedy, so let's throw this annoying character in. Okay, I just want to clarify, it sounds like I'm hating on the show right now, and I'm not. There's a few things that kind of, I guess, I'm just not into, and having over-the-top annoying characters kind of tunes me out, but that's just because they're annoying. I think she means well, ultimately, and there were some things later. I actually watched the 10th episode, even though I wasn't supposed to.
Are you cheater?
Yeah, I know. And it talks, and she mentions something about her past. So I know there's some character development coming, but like right now she's just kind of annoying and selfish.
Yeah, and that's her character, because she's from Germany, and she's like she's kind of full of herself, right? Because she seems to be like the best pilot out of them, but because the first time you see her fight, she does a really good job, and so she kind of knows that she's hot stuff, so it's kind of a little bit obnoxious. But let's just kind of walk through the general arc of the episodes, right? So you got the first episode, this angel attacks, right? It's this thing that's got like a beak mask, and Shinji gets picked up by this older woman, well, not older, she's like in her 20s or whatever, Misato Katsuragi. And he's taken to NERV, this government agency, to pilot Eva number 1. He sees that Rei has just lost the fight against the angel. She was piloting Eva number 0 and she was injured. And so Shinji's got to fight this angel, right? And so we already kind of talked about this. He doesn't do a great job. He kind of fails, but then his angel comes alive, his Eva comes alive and kills the angel in berserk mode. So we got episode number 2. Not much happens. Shinji moves in with Misato, who has a pet penguin. Y'all have kind of thoughts on this?
No, that's just a weird aspect of the show. I haven't really thought in depth really of the meaning of the penguin. If it has any meaning, maybe it's more like comical relief of the show.
Yeah, I think so. It's just some weird humor. And one thing I noticed was pretty obvious, that Misato is an alcoholic. Like she just drinks beer all the time.
That's so strange, and I mean, I'm sure that has to do with the whole underlying theme of. Well, we'll get to it.
We'll talk about it once we finish going through the episodes, Nick. But I kind of gave JP a hint as to what the show's about that I did not give you a hint about, Nick.
That's fine. I don't want to know. I want to be kept in the dark because
okay.
That's how you should
Wait,
treat
are we going to
English.
talk about this at the end of it, or just...
No, we can talk about it here. Just kind of one of the themes of the show, at least. Yeah, and what I like about Misato, though, is that she is... because she's both comic relief as being like an immature 20-something, but also she's also kind of serious business also.
She's a functioning alcoholic. Really well functioning alcoholic.
Yeah, exactly. But it's interesting in the moments whenever she gets serious and she's doing her job like a competent person, or it's kind of like you see a different side of her that's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, she can turn it on when she needs to.
Yeah, she's pretty tough and pretty serious, but so I get the excessive drinking because maybe she's just... She has the weight of the world on her shoulders, along with everybody at Nerve. You know, they're the only company in the world who are trying to defeat these angels, and they don't know anything about them, and so they're really just, in a sense, flying, by the seat of their pants. You know, they're figuring it out as they go to some extent, and so that's a lot of pressure to defend the world and not really know what you're up against. So I get it, to relieve some stress.
Yeah. I mean, I think if I could count all the times that I've had beer for breakfast, I mean...
Yeah, that is a bit crazy. That is a bit extreme.
So you got episode 3, Shinji goes to school. We learn that he goes to school with Rei, the other Eva pilot. And he also gets punched in the face by his classmate Toji because his sister was injured in an angel battle. I mean, it's kind of been clear to this point, but Shinji is super insecure and doesn't believe in himself, right? And that's what's kind of cool about this show, because Shinji is a super obnoxious character to be like the hero of this show. But it makes sense, right? Like if you were 14 years old and you were supposed to save the world, like how would you feel?
Yeah, but also, I mean, you're not talking, going all into his background. I mean, he hasn't seen his father in 3 years, and then all of a sudden he gets picked up by Miss Masato, and then they yell at him and say, "Hey, you're gonna pilot this Eva," and he's like, "What? I don't want to know anything." And so he hasn't seen his dad in that long. His mom's dead. He's a loner. Yeah, he's kind of weird. I mean, it's gonna happen.
The relationship between him and his dad is super messed up, I think.
Yeah, it's like a business relationship.
Yeah, like he seems like his boss rather than his father, and which makes sense though if his dad's busy saving the world all the time. But still, it must be hard on the kid, And so. But he actually, because he thinks that his dad and Misato don't value him as a person, and they're just using him as a tool to pilot the Eva, basically. And so anyways, his classmates decide to be friends with him, Toji and Kensuke. They decide they want to be friends with him, and obviously they got a big old crush on Misato, the grown woman who picks him up from school and all that stuff. And you get to episode 4 where the pressure kind of gets to Shinji, he runs away. He also defeated in episode 3, he defeated the second angel. But in episode 4, Shinji runs away, and I guess he changes his mind at some point. Why do y'all think he changed his mind, I guess, and decided to stay and fight?
Because maybe he decided that, the world was going to get destroyed without him, so he thought, might as well try to save it.
Right.
And maybe, what's her name, Ray?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Ray, maybe he doesn't want to put all the weight on her shoulders.
Yeah.
Because he likes her. He likes her. I don't know. I can't remember if you know that by then, but.
Well, I think that he feels a connection to her just because she's faced with the same responsibilities that he is, And see, I would even argue that I don't even know if he has a crush on her necessarily, because So in episode 5, that's the one, JP, that you mentioned where he walks in on her after she showers, and that's that part's a super exaggerated version of an awkward middle school encounter, but that's the episode where he tries to kind of connect with her, I guess, but her character is that she's like you said, JP, she's emotionless, She kind of seems like a sociopath almost.
Yeah, well, she's just kind of got a flat affect or no. she's just like got a brick wall up.
Yeah. And so episode 6 is whenever Shinji and Rei team up to beat the third angel, which is the polygon shaped thing that's like drilling into the earth. And so they team up. They beat the angel. They kind of bond a little bit through this. In episode 7, we got the one where the other military organization is creating the other robot that has like a meltdown, you know? And so Shinji and the scientist from NERV, Ritsuko, they have to team up to stop the robot. And now y'all caught the thing at the end where NERV had actually orchestrated that malfunction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and so there's just a little drama going on behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Or you don't know really why. I mean, it looks like it's probably evil or some evil, but you never know.
Maybe they just messed it up just to show that, hey, just because you think you can make a big robot to save the world doesn't mean you can.
Right.
It's okay, and so that's what I'm confused about. Is he was talking to that guy?
Yeah.
Kuzu?
Yeah, Kozo or Kuzu.
And then wasn't Ritsuko?
Yeah, so Ritsuko is the scientist, and so they were kind of in on it. They were sabotaging the robot or whatever. Yeah. And so, I mean, not necessarily, we don't necessarily know why, because you would think that if you're saving the world, you would want, like, everyone would be on the same page. You know, like, it'd be like, you know, if another company is building a giant robot, hey, that's cool. Let's work with them.
In a way, I think it's like that they're trying to make you think that, like, Shinji's dad has some evil master plan, but
you think it's like a misdirect or something?
But
like
I think
that?
it's a misdirect. I think he has good because he saved Rei, and I think that they're just trying to misdirect you.
Okay, nice. All right, well, episode 8, this is when we get introduced to Asuka, which Nick, you already kind of expressed. You think she's a little bit obnoxious, but they fight that shark whale angel thing. We get introduced to Ava number 2. They kind of team up and kill it. And then you get episode 9, which I think is my favorite out of these, where they have to, Asuka and Shinji have to, like, sync up. Did y'all ever see Pacific Rim? Did y'all ever see that?
No.
Because it's basically got the same idea where, like, two people have to get so in sync that they can predict each other's movements. Because they have to synchronize in order to beat Angel number 5, which is like a thing that splits in half, and so they gotta kill it at the same time, I guess.
Yeah, but for them to sync up, so they first attack this angel, and they think they got it set, then they fail, and it's a big nationwide embarrassment for NERV and everybody. Mm-hmm. And so obviously Shinji and what's his name? Shinji, right?
Shinji, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I said. Whatever. Anyways, he and Osaku, is that the German girl?
Asuka,
I was close. I know what's going on. I don't know their names. So when they don't get along, and Miss Masato, she says, you guys got to figure out how to get along. You're going to spend a lot of time together, and then you'll sync your battle stuff up and fight, and so...
Yeah, because they move in together. Like, so now they both live with Misato at this point, right?
Oh, yeah. And so the whole episode is them being mad at each other, but they eventually learn to work together, and they sync up their dance moves and stuff, and the fighting styles, and defeat the angel, and all is well with the world.
Yeah, I just don't understand all the little sexual...
Yeah,
because they move in together.
Because Shinji totally wants to bang Asuka.
Yeah, I know. And then, like, he's dreaming or something about kissing her. And
because she walks in and she's like, her boobs are all out and stuff like that. Yeah. And he's about to kiss her, and then then she says, like, what does she say? Like, she says something that makes her seem childish or whatever.
Because I mean, that's what any like teenager would want to, like, you know, have some hot girl their age like living there, and you know, just then their imaginations go all over the place.
Yeah,
it's just like, you know, what's the reason why do they do that?
Well, and again, I think because part of me wonders, because we're done recapping all these episodes. Now we can just kind of talk about our feelings on what happens. Part of me wonders how much of this, because a lot of anime is very sexual, you know, just for the hell of it, I think. and like Nick, Dragon Ball Z, like a lot of the humor is, what's his name? Master Roshi is just like a pervy old dude that wants to
like
see.
he like is creepy against Bulma, and it's weird.
A lot of anime has that type of stuff, skimpy outfits and tickle bitties and stuff like that. Like all that stuff is all over anime, and so part of me wonders how much of this show is just it being an anime show, and how much is it being like, okay, this is from Shinji's perspective. He wants to bang all the women around him, and so this is how he's viewing them.
Yeah, it is a bit excessive, but okay. So we talked about that they live in Tokyo 3, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so why do they? Okay, I have two things to say. One, why do they need 3 Tokyos?
Maybe it's the third Tokyo because all the first 2 got destroyed.
No, but
maybe.
they're still there. They visit Tokyo 1 and 2.
Oh.
And then my other question about Tokyo 3 is maybe y'all don't have the answers. Maybe I need to call up the show's writer and everything if they're still alive and say, what's up with the show? But why are the Angels only attacking Tokyo 3? I mean, there are other cities in the world, but the Angels just say, hey, this is it. This is the place.
So that is explained in the show.
Okay. Then we'll leave that alone.
Yeah, and so that's why, Asuka, she, because she's from Germany, they're flying her in specifically to defend Tokyo 3, because that's where they keep on showing up. That's where the Angels keep showing up. Which I love how it doesn't explain how the Angels show up. They're just there all of a sudden. Like, you just wake up and there's like a big-ass monster outside your window, and, they don't know how it got there or whatever. So a lot of kind of like unanswered questions and mysterious stuff. I guess, did you guys have any other like additional questions or thoughts?
I do. I have a list.
Yeah, go for it.
So what was I gonna say? Oh, one thing I just wanted to point out was that I feel like the show is almost like a cross between Godzilla and Mobile Suit Gundam.
Yeah.
Because they're fighting these big monsters and they're in big mech suits. So that's kind of cool. All right, so they talk a lot about the second impact, right?
Uh-huh.
What's the first impact? Is there a first impact, or is it like the Big Bang?
I guess they don't explain this in the show, but the first impact is the meteorite that killed the dinosaurs, basically. Okay. Yeah. So it's talking about like, okay, this is the new apocalypse, basically. And so they think that a third impact might be coming that might be even worse. It'd be like a new extinction, basically, of mankind.
Well, that makes sense, but yeah, I mean, general thoughts. I mean, I think it's an interesting show, and it helps that the episodes are pretty short. And the intro song is like a minute-and-a-half music video talking about, I guess, Shinji. I can't say his name. Shinji. Yeah. It's just something like, oh boy, you can be a man. Do-do-do, do-do-do. And it like goes on forever. But
I don't think I once listened to saw the full intro.
You need to. It's definitely, you just watch it once. That's all you gotta do. Then do skip intro every time.
But the intro is worth a watch because there's actually a lot of. It's interesting watching the show and knowing what it's about and knowing all the secrets that are in the show, because a lot of that stuff is hinted at in the opening.
Yeah, I figured it might have some.
So there's like words that flash up, like the words that flash up and the images that are shown are like important to pay attention to and to be wondering about as you watch the show.
That's kind of what I thought. So kind of like in GoldenEye and Mission Impossible when they have their opening scenes, like the musical numbers, is like all these images, like that doesn't make any sense to me. But then after the movie, you're like, oh, that made sense.
Yeah, because some words I think that pop up in the intro are like words like second impact is there. I think that like the word atom shows up, and that's important. And so there's some kind of hints at what's going on in the show.
Yeah, he made some mention about like the first man, Adam, once.
Well, okay, and also we can talk about this, is how the show has a lot of like biblical references, but it's not, so like the people who made the show weren't Christians and stuff like that, so it's not about the Christian like apocalypse or anything like that, but there are a bunch of references to that stuff, because they also talk about like the Dead Sea Scrolls. I don't know if that's been mentioned yet in the series, but stuff like that does come up. And if you look up the names of the angels, those are also references to stuff in the Bible. So it's interesting. They use like some ideas, but it's all fantasy though. Like they're not trying to tell like a story that actually has to do with like the
there's no hidden religious agenda
right.
throughout
Not like the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Right, yeah. And so, so Nick, actually, I do want to fill you in on this, because I told JP this, that the creator of the show has a history with depression, okay? And so some of the themes of the show are about depression, and so you can kind of tell that already with Shinji and like having to deal with like a bunch of pressure. JP, you had some interesting, because you hinted at this before we started recording, about like your take on the depression angle, because JP is a psychology major from college, and so he's got a little bit more insight.
Well,
into
I'm a psychologist. I have a doctorate from Yale. No, I mean, and I'm a psychology major. I mean, I did not graduate with a psychology major, but I got plenty of hours. And I mean, also, you know, I've had my own struggles. I mean, we as humans, everybody deals with depression.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't care who you are, anxiety, depression, we all experience that. And but I saw the angel attacks as just an onslaught of depression. That's what I was thinking, because I mean, first it helped because I viewed it like Dietz let me know what it was about.
Because I was worried that since this was your very first anime, that you would be like, man, this shit's weird. But so I kind of wanted to give you something to keep you going.
And I would have been able to see Shinji's inner turmoil, but as far as what I see now, like I wouldn't have been able to think of the angel attacks as attacks of like depression and anxiety. Just because that's how it works. I mean, sometimes it can be environmental or biological, but sometimes depression comes out of nowhere and just
like the angel attacks.
Yeah. Just annihilates you, or it becomes a battle. And so, I guess when Shinji, him getting into his Eva and battling the angel, that's him trying to battle this depression. And sometimes you succeed, like certain episodes, and then sometimes like you just don't. But you still survive, but it knocks you down or knocks you out a little bit harder than it does.
Maybe in the instances where he teams up with some of the other characters, that's like, saying you need a support group and stuff like that. You need other people, whether it be like a therapist or people in your life to help you through it.
But definitely, and if the underlying theme is if this is about kind of depression, I think that's definitely what the angel attacks are, I think that has to be it.
What they represent.
Just attacks of depression.
Yeah, and that's not surprising, because the way the angels are, like their color scheme, basically, that's usually like a dark gray or a black, and so they're kind of just gloomy characters. I mean, I guess except for that floating pyramid.
And there are times, and whenever Shinji's in the Eva, he's just saying, "I can't do this." And he's so terrified, and I mean, and then that's how you feel sometimes. It's just, but the only thing you can do is just fight.
Yeah, because if you give up, then like literally that's the end, right?
Yeah. I mean, that like that's the only thing you can do is just keep on fighting. And then there's one time where Shinji, whenever he ran away, he went to the wilderness and he was around nature and the wind. And I mean, I know with my own issues, anytime when you're dealing with depression, like being out in nature is so comforting and therapeutic. So I thought that was interesting.
Well, I don't know if y'all noticed, but so oftentimes whenever the characters are outside and there's moments of silence, they often have like the sound of the
cicadas.
Yeah,
there must be a ton of cicadas in Japan.
Well, and I didn't catch this the first time, but I read this analysis online of in the show, like in the narrative of the show, that's like it's a reference to the fact that the Antarctica was melted, so basically it's summer all year long, and so the cicadas are constantly just around and overwhelming. But yeah, I mean that's just kind of a nice little note there. Well, do you guys have any closing thoughts before we wrap this episode up?
I recommend anybody who likes entertainment to check out this show. If you're interested in anime, check it out. I recommend. JP likes it, and he doesn't like anything nerdy. So if JP likes it, you can like it. Those are my thoughts. It's good so far.
Yeah, I am pleasantly surprised that both y'all like it because I was expecting both y'all to be like a little bit weirded out by it, but it's cool that y'all went into it with an open mind, and I think that as we get closer to the end, it gets crazy. The show gets nuts, okay? And so I'm excited to kind of go through the rest of the series.
And how many seasons?
Well, so this is just one season. It's just 26 episodes,
okay.
and then a season, like a movie that ends the series, basically. So our next podcast, we will cover episodes 10 through 18. That does it for this week's regular episode. Of course, this coming Sunday, we're going to be dropping our discussion of Watchmen, which we discussed chapters 1 through 4 of Alan Moore's Watchmen graphic novel. And I didn't mention this, but there's actually a lot of kind of similar themes between Watchmen and Evangelion that we can talk about. But if you enjoyed the show, like us on our Facebook page, subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, etc. If you haven't yet, leave us a rating or review. And if you have any comments or questions or recommendations of stuff you want to cover, send us an email at winerdcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, though. We will see you guys this coming Sunday for Watchmen.